It's time to talk sports. It's HACKSAW'S Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions.
Touchdown, San Diego!
Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
From the Dixieline Lumber Studios in San Diego, who wants to talk sports on a Friday as we kick off a great sports weekend? We do. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my host, John Riley. We welcome you to a special Memorial Day weekend edition of HACKSAW'S Headlines, our podcast. John is just back from Ireland and Spain. I am just off the disabled list. We have a ton of topics on the table. And our podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Center Stores, 9 locations in San Diego to serve you, and by North County Eye Center of Poway and Escondido. When you need help with your eyes, we invite you to contact the people at North County Eye Center. John Riley is back. Johnny jet lag. It hasn't hit him yet, but if he disappears in the middle of our Friday podcast, you'll know that he has gone down on the floor with jet lag. Great to have you back. Great to get back into the rhythm. Great to be talking to everybody in the U.S. and across our network in Canada and joining us.
Yeah, happy to be back. We had a great trip, but I was a little bit out of touch with sports. I was following HACKSAW'S Headlines on your website, but I'm happy to start talking sports again. It's going to be good to be home.
You didn't like talking about the bull rings and hurling in Spain and Ireland, did you?
Yeah, and all the, roller hockey and funky versions of handball.
Darts. Hey, listen, we have a ton of stuff we're going to cover. We're going to go a lot of different directions. We will be back to our regular schedule Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, but we decided to move it to Friday just because of Johnny jet lag and travel restrictions, etc. Our podcast obviously covers a lot of different things. We want to remind you that we do something really unique right at the end. And we're going to hit the button after the first hour. It's called Fans Forum. And if you're new to our podcast, new to our live stream, we want you to join us in the chat box. John, you got 10 seconds to explain how Fans Forum works.
10 seconds. All right. If you have a question or comment for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton on anything in the world of sports, type it in the live chat on Facebook, YouTube, or X, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of HACKSAW'S Headlines.
And what makes this a success is your involvement. And what makes this a success if you subscribe. So therefore, you will get the notifications every time we put something up on the YouTube channel. And we do a whole bunch of creative things in terms of videos, as well as one man's opinion columns, etc. So subscribe so you'll get the notification. And if you like sports, check my website. It's all written. It's there every morning. And when you join the website, there's a big orange box on the front page. Put your name and email address in there. You'll get special notifications of things we're doing for everybody that's part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Ready, set, go. Topic 1 involves baseball, Petco Park, tonight, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Padres, Yankees, Juan Soto is back in town, Lee.
A lot of big stories here in baseball. Let's start, first of all, with the Padres. Pretty good roadie. They win 5 of 7 in Atlanta and Cincinnati. Wasn't pretty, but they got the victories, which prevented them from sliding further away from the Dodgers. It came at a price. They lose Xander Bogaerts, fractured shoulder, luckily no torn labrum, scary injury. You don't come back from those things real quick, probably out 2 months. They're trying to find the right mix now. Who should play second base? Is it super utility guy Tyler Wade, he's contributed a lot? Is it Luis Arraez, who's hitting .419? .419 as a Padre. Is it Cronenworth shifting over? And then, of course, who goes to first? Another insurance policy acquisition. First, it was Donovan Solano, the second baseman. Now it's Daniel Peralta. Great acquisition. If he can hit back to what he was just a couple of years ago, he's coming off shoulder surgery, .279 career hitter. And then we got Friday, Saturday, Sunday baseball at the Yard, and the Padres have stacked the rotation. Dylan Cease, Hugh Musgrove against Murderers Row, and the batting order that the Yankees are bringing to town. This is going to be a fascinating weekend of baseball. I think it's kind of like a litmus test. How really good are the Padres? Are they a 500 team, or is this the team that punched the Dodgers in the mouth a couple of weeks ago, and can they do the same thing against the second-best team in Major League Baseball. And then the sidebar question, when he steps in the box with his .315 batting average and his 13 home runs, do you think Padre fan will cheer or will they boo Juan Soto? So, John, while you were drinking Guinness beer in Ireland and running the streets with the Bulls in Spain, your thoughts on the Padres winning 5 of 7, the injury, and what this weekend means.
Well, I mean, they had a great road trip. You got to love that. I mean, coming off beating the Braves 3 out of 4 and then the Reds 2 out of 3, that's fantastic. Now, the Yankees come to town, like you say, it's a litmus test. I bet you money the fans are going to boo Juan Soto. And I'm not sure if I really agree with that, because he was the best player on the team last year. And really,
for 4 months. Now, prior to that, nah.
But still, he was like had an OPS over 900 for the season. It's going to be a great series. And it's a shame, though, that Michael King doesn't get in the shot at the Yankees because he would love to go up against his former team. But if you've got Darvish and Musgrove and Cease, 1, 2, 3, this is a great test. Now, as far as what to do with Xander being out, boy, what a disaster season that is. I play Cronenworth at second. I mean, Cronenworth is fantastic defensively. Arise is just sort of okay defensively.
Now, I don't know that he's okay defensively at first base, though.
Well, yeah. So it's in my opinion, yeah, maybe you keep Arise, keep him as DH. And then, Tyler Wade is your Swiss Army knife. He can play anywhere. And then if you want to put Arise in the field, then I think Peralta should be your DH or Solano.
Yankees come to town. I am amazed that they have the second best record in Major League Baseball. When you consider no Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon had not done anything for 2 years because of injuries. Now he's having a good season. That's a surprise. Nestor Cortez had a good rookie season and got hurt at the end. They found this kid, Luis Gil, struck out 14 the other night. He's come out of their farm system. And Clark Schmidt, the other pitchers pitched really well. I was one of the guys that said Padres should have gotten Clark Schmidt.
Right, you were.
As part of the Soto deal. But the Yankees are just hammering it. And it's just not Soto. I mean, Judge is hitting 276, and he's got maybe 15 bombs. Giancarlo Stanton, who's had a history of injuries ever since he got there from Miami, is hitting like 245, but he's got 12 bombs. You got Verdugo, the ex-Red Sox, hitting home runs. Gleyber Torres, the young infielder, has got power. They've just got a lot of different people that can do a lot of different things. It's more than just the murderer's row, big home run hitters. They got a lot of guys that contribute.
Yeah, they do. And this will be a great test for them. But, the Yankees are well over 500. So that means the Padres have a good shot here because they played well against the top teams. So I think it's going to be a terrific series, a great test for the team. And anytime the Yankees come to Petco Park, it's always going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get a lot of fans. The place is going to sell out. It's going to be a lot of energy out there.
A lot of people wearing pinstripes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're going to come out of the woodwork. You know it.
Oh, yeah. Now you're a smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
I saw your transcript at UCSD, 3.94
yeah,
GPA.
Maybe.
Can you please explain to me how the Padres could be 10-16 at home, have 17 road wins, hit 232 at home, but hit 263 on the road, home ERA 4.40, road ERA 3.15? Smart guy. Explain how bad it is, why it's that way at Petco versus when Padres go on the road.
No, if you try to apply reason and logic to this whole thing, it just drives you crazy because it doesn't make any sense at all. So, if you go by the numbers, we have a good shot against a winning team. It's the Yankees coming to town. But you know what's probably going to happen? The San Diego sports curse. Trent Grisham is probably going to get to bat, and he's going to hit a bomb and probably beat us. I mean, that's usually how those things go.
He's hitting .056.
Yeah, but when he plays the Padres,
he's not playing.
But you suspect something's up.
Okay, so we got that. Hey, Fans Forum is open for Padre fan. If there are any Yankee fans, jump into the chat box. You tell us, litmus test Padres, how really good are the Yankees? Your thoughts, Padres, Yankees, what a, quote, great sports weekend this is going to be down at Petco Park. Let's move on. Dodgers storyline. Dodgers hot. Dodgers have not hit a little bit. Pitching is carrying them right now. Yoshi Yamamoto had the bad start, South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Last 9 starts, 2.39 ERA.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive. Walker Buehler, long process coming back, couple of shaky outings. Last outing, 6 shutout innings, no runs allowed, clocked at 95. Now, that was last outing. We'll have to see if he follows that with the next outing. Third guy, Dustin May, now beginning rehab starts, minor leagues. Could be here July 1st. So suddenly the Dodgers' infusion of the injured pitchers coming off the roster. It is interesting, though. Their batting order has cooled down. Outside of Ohtani, some other guys stopped hitting, including Mookie Betts. And the bottom of the batting order is freaky. I mean, these guys are hitting 073 and 126 and 186. And so the bottom third of the Dodger batting order is just kind of dingy. Thoughts on the Dodgers?
Thoughts on the Dodgers? Well, first of all, Dustin May, I always love watching that guy. I mean, he throws 101 mile an hour two-seamer that breaks like 12 inches off the plate. It's incredible. And he looks like Carrot Top when he's pitching. It's weird, though, that guys like Chris Taylor, are just stinking up the joint, where that guy has usually been a really productive player. I mean, Max Muncy, too. I mean, how's he doing? His batting average is still not very good, right?
He's doing it on the disabled list. He's got an oblique injury.
Yeah,
but he's hitting in the 258 slot, but he's got power. So therefore, he's been pretty productive. So, I mean, we got a lot of baseball to be played. The key, if the Dodgers get another hot streak coming, and I think they've won 14 of their last 20, if the Dodgers get another hot streak coming, they're going to put so much distance between them and anybody else in the National League West. I think it's going to be hard for those guys to come back.
Yeah, I tend to think you're right.
Okay, next topic. Let's talk about the Juan Soto storyline. Juan Soto this week stood up in New York and said, I want to stay here. I want to open contract extension talks right now. Let's get a deal done. He's fit in well. The New York media has accepted him. The pressure points have not been too great. Dude's not hitting 220 at Yankee Stadium like he hit here in San Diego last year. So he likes it there. Hal Steinbrenner, the lead owner, says, I'm willing to sit and talk right now. However, the factor is the agent.
Scott Boras
never negotiates in season for his clients. He delivers everybody to the free agent starting line November 1st. And here's the wild card in the whole thing. We know he will be out there taking offers, shopping those offers, trying to create a bidding war. Cross town, the New York Mets are representing one of his other clients, and they can't get a deal done for Peter Alonso, home run hitter. Mm-hmm. So the theory is Boras is not going to return a call from Hal Steinbrenner. Boras is going to take this thing to November 1st. He's going to take both Soto and Peter Alonso out on the open market and shop them and deliver them other places. And if he can get Steve Cohen, the Mets owner, who's having a miserable spring and summer, bad team, if he can get him to bid, then he can bid on the Mets versus the Yankees, and he can relocate Alonso somewhere else, Wrigley Field or some other ballpark that's willing to pay the guy money. And if that's not enough, he also represents Alex Bregman, Houston's star third baseman, who's a walk free agent, and he represents all those guys who have the asterisk next to their name with opt-out clauses, a.k.a. Blake Snell, a.k.a. Cody Bellinger, Corbin Burns, Baltimore Orioles. I mean, Boras has got all these mega guys that he represents. So, to complicate it all comes a story this morning in New York that Steinbrenner is leading a charge to eradicate the luxury tax. He says it's prohibitive. It's not sustainable. Even at Yankee Stadium, their payroll as of lunchtime today was $309 million, $58 million tacked on as a luxury tax. He thinks the luxury tax could go away. So all of a sudden, Steinbrenner says, yeah, I'll talk to Scott Boras right now. 2 days later, he says, this is not sustainable. We can't operate at 309 payroll and pay a $58 million tax on top of that. That has to change. So I'm not sure what to believe and whether or not there's going to be a phone call made, whether Boras would take the phone call, but Soto really likes it there. So, John, just go ahead and give me your reaction.
Well, I wonder if, when Soto was here, he, smiled and laughed and liked to say good morning and those little interviews when he was in spring training. But you could kind of tell he didn't really want to be here. And he is where he wants to be. But I'm wondering if these guys are playing their hand, asking for too much. If it's not sustainable for Steinbrenner, I mean, it's not, and we know the Mets are scaling back. Other teams are scaling back. They're not going to be able to afford a $440 million deal that Soto turned down. At what point are we going to max out for these players? I'm wondering if Soto sees the writing on the wall. Maybe he gets the free agency, and the only team that is willing to pay big money is the Yankees. He doesn't have a counterpoint to negotiate against. Maybe he wants to get the deal done right now.
Well, I think that. And I think he looks in the rearview mirror. He sees what happened to Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, J.D. Martinez.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Boras historically has always gotten his guy the next high contract. And, of course, Ohtani's contract, even though it says $700 million and deferred and all that, is like $43 million per year. I would assume Soto's contract would be north of $43 million per year that Ohtani is currently getting. But who are the bidders? If it's not the Mets and the Yankees, I don't think it's anybody else.
I agree. Because the Dodgers aren't going to keep ponying up. I mean, they have a limit as well, don't they?
And the Phillies have they got a great team, big contracts for a whole select group of their players, including the two pitchers that they forked out, $170 million apiece.
Yeah.
This past offseason. So this will be fascinating. Next name on the board. This is an intriguing story. We're talking about Josh Hader, ex-Milwaukee Brewer, Josh Hader, ex-Padre, Josh Hader currently with a struggling Houston team, struggling himself. His agent came out behind the curtain this past week, John, while you were drinking Guinness beer in Ireland, and said Milwaukee was unethical in dealing with this guy, and the media has been unfair to my client. And the backstory is Josh Hader, early in his career, was asked to be the Swiss Army knife, your favorite phrase, do a lot of different things out of the pen, close, be a setup guy, be a two-inning guy, etc. And for the most part, he did really well. Statistics were phenomenal. But as he was coming up for arbitration, he had a bad month-and-a-half span. And Milwaukee went to the arbitration hearing, and they pulled out all these statistics, and they killed him at the arbitration table for a month and a half of bad baseball after having done Swiss Army knife stuff for 3 years. And the agent was furious, and Hader, he lost the relationship with the Brewers. And he said, that was unethical. You asked him to do all this? Guy's got 171 career saves, 45% strikeout rate. Opponent's batting average in his career is 159, and you used a month and a half of substandard performances because you overused him. You used it against him in arbitration. And he said, and the media jumped on that story, and this is why this past summer, the big issue about, are we in a pennant race? I'm not pitching more than one inning if we're not in a pennant race, right. And et cetera, et cetera. And we all responded to Hader being selfish, et cetera. So that's the backstory. And Josh Hader's agent just went freaking public against the way the Milwaukee Brewers treated the guy. Reaction.
I saw that article as well, and it caught my attention because I can't recall any other situation where a player sets limits on how often they're going to be used. Usually, if the manager calls your name, you're in. But I understand the strategy why Hader did what he did. But, you look at Robert Suarez on the Padres. He doesn't have a problem going 5-inning saves, 4-inning saves. He doesn't have a problem pitching in a non-save situation with a 4 or 5 run lead. But then Suarez has like a 5-year deal, and it's guaranteed for, what is it, like $45-50 million? Yeah,
it's a big issue.
So it's an interesting thing. I've just never seen a case where a player can tell a manager, no, I'm not going to play right now. And that just blows me away. But I get it. I understand what it was all about.
And now we have the history of what Craig Counsell did and what the general manager said. And all of a sudden, they're using a bad 3.5 weeks, and he was bad, but that was overuse.
But they've been doing that all the time in arbitration, going way back. They'll cherry pick the bad stuff and use it against them. And that's why a lot of times when they actually go to the arbitrator, the player comes out feeling really bad about the situation, even if they won arbitration, because they were getting nitpicked.
And that's why they tell players don't go to an arbitration hearing, because you'll hear stuff in that hearing from them across the table that you work for.
Yeah.
You might not want to listen to.
Yeah. So, that's good. They're not going to share the good stuff if they're negotiating down.
Okay, next topic here in Major League Baseball. We got one more item here. This has got serious implications. You remember this guy, shortstop David Fletcher, Angels, came through the farm system. David Fletcher implicated now with a former minor league player by the name of Colby Schultz betting on sports. Fletcher knew Ohtani's personal aide knew he was a gambler. They went to casinos and gambled together. They wound up gambling with the illegal bookie, Matthew Boyer. Now we find out MLB is beginning the investigation of David Fletcher specifically. Fletcher said never bet on baseball. He did bet on other sports. Major League Baseball says you can't make bets on anything with an illegal bookie. You want to go to a casino in Atlantic City or Vegas, you can do that. You can't deal with a bookie. Mm-hmm. Now we find out Kobe Schultz was betting on baseball, one of his running mates in the minor leagues. Kobe Schultz was betting on baseball. Kobe Schultz was getting, quote, inside information from David Fletcher, placing bets. That's illegal. The other thing was Fletcher having Schultz place the bets for him. This is deep. And I guess the naiveness of me to think no other players would ever be involved in anything like that has now been flipped because Fletcher was really tight with Ohtani, his friends in the clubhouse, etc. They didn't run the streets because Ohtani doesn't run the streets. He's a private person. But the fact Fletcher knew Mizuhara, the aide, the gambling addict. Now, I think this is a deeper issue, and you have to wonder if two players were involved with Mizuhara, are there others out there? But this is a scary thing for Fletcher because if they find out that he was providing inside information on injuries to Kobe Schultz, and Schultz was placing bets on Angel games, that he was, and on other games based on the data that Fletcher gave him, Fletcher could be in real trouble.
How did you? I don't believe that either. I mean, when they say I didn't bet on baseball, I mean, come on. I mean, if you have that inside information, that'll be the first thing that you'll want to bet on.
Yeah, but you know the end result. You're
but they'll say, well, no one's going to catch me. That's probably what they're thinking, and they're probably having some adult beverages and hanging out with the boys and talking sports and like, oh yeah, here's an inside scoop. That kind of thing happens. I agree with you. If there's two guys that are in this, where there's smoke, there's fire. And even when Pete Rose said, well, I did bet on baseball, but I never bet on the Reds to lose. I only bet on the Reds to win.
I was
can't
like, delineate.
Yeah, I know, but how do you enforce that?
I concur. All right, so Fans Forum box is open. If you're an Angel fan or just a baseball fan, are you concerned about the depth now? Because Fletcher has been dragged into this, and a minor league player has been dragged into this with Ohtani's personal aide. So we go from that. Next topic on the table.
NFL. I mean, we've got headlines in just about every sport here. Look at these team names. Chargers and Rams at the top of the list.
Everybody's in OTAs right now. Everybody's really excited about what they're seeing with the rookies and how the veterans are starting to practice. Chargers, Justin Herbert, first series of practices with the number one unit, Jim Harbaugh's new offense with coordinator Greg Roman. He goes 16 for 17 throwing the football. He was buzzing the ball everywhere. Ladd McConkey, the draft pick out of Georgia, 3 huge receptions, 2 of them for touchdowns, running as an inside slot receiver with the number one offense. He's been pretty impressive. Junior Colson, a linebacker from Michigan. They got him teamed with the old guy, Denzel Perryman, who they brought back. And they got Mr. Outside, Mr. Inside, running everywhere, making all kinds of plays. So they're kind of excited with what they've seen in the minicamp so far. The strangest aspect, Chargers drafted Joe Alt of Notre Dame, number 1, going to be the right tackle. He did not take a snap with the number 1 unit in the first couple of practices.
Really?
They ran 4 series with the number 1 units. He was a backup. He did practice with the second group, which is kind of surprised because they had Trey Pippins, who's been there as a 3-year starter and has kind of scuffled. He's one of the lowest-ranked right tackles in football. He was taking virtually all the number 1 picks. So that was really kind of a surprise with the Chargers camp. And then here's the funniest part. So Perryman was a vibrant personality, played at Miami of Florida, came here for a whole bunch of years, and then left as a free agent. So he comes back because he's active and he's physical, and he's a bit of a fiery leader. So they asked him about playing for Harbaugh, and he says, it's like watching a Will Ferrell movie. Every time Will Ferrell opens his mouth, you say, what the hell are you talking about? So that's what Harbaugh does, all these sales pitches. It's like a tent revival meeting every time Harbaugh opens his mouth. So Perryman says, what the hell is he talking about? I don't understand any of it. But he likes Harbaugh's track record. So that's interesting. Second team, L.A. Rams. They love what they drafted. Their number 1 and their number 2 picks are playing really well. The defensive end out of Florida State, the defensive tackle from Florida State, they're really pleased. Setback for the Rams, however, and this has got to be of concern. Kyron Williams, their heavy-duty running back, has a foot injury that is not healed since the end of last season. He is out of all the OTAs, and they're walking around with their fingers crossed that he'll be ready for the start of the season because they need him as a heavy-duty guy. Blake Corum, the rookie running back from Michigan, they've told him, be prepared to be a 3-down running back. You're going to run it, and we're going to throw to you.
Nice.
And you got to pick up the blitz package. But he's built like a fire hydrant. We're not talking about a bulk guy. So the Rams, a little bit concerned about the running situation. Minnesota is like Cincinnati, is like a whole bunch of teams in the league. Everybody's got money issues at wide receiver. The divas, every one of them, John, wants $30 million a year. Salary cap obviously has gone up. Justin Jefferson, no-show, OTAs, got 1 year left on his contract, not going on the field. He wants $35 million. He wants $1 million more than the highest-paid player, non-quarterback player in the league, Nick Bosa, earning 34. He wants 35. And when he said 35, Jamar Chase in Cincinnati said 30. And he's in the same boat. Last year of the contract. Now, he's been, I think, grossly underpaid. And Cincinnati's got a second problem. T. Higgins, the franchise tag receiver, the running mate to Jamar Chase, he's refused to sign the $21 million franchise tag. And he's put up pretty doggone good numbers with Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. So suddenly, they got all these issues, Minnesota and Cincinnati. Good. Comment on Chargers, Rams, Vikes, Bengals, and money, and then we'll get to the other teams.
Okay, I mean, there's a ton here to talk about. But, I was scrolling through my social media, and you see some of these updates on the Chargers. The one that caught my attention, Justin Herbert got a haircut. Did you see that? So he's like, the girls all swoon for Justin Herbert. But what does OTA stand for, by the way?
Off-season training something or other.
Yeah, I mean,
OTAs.
how serious of a program are these OTAs?
Well, the OTAs, you're not in pads. You're in helmets and shells. But the OTAs is you install everything. You do a ton of classroom work. You go out on the field for an hour, and you implement what you put in the classroom, formations and all that. So it's important for the new guys, the young guys who've never been in the whole pro concept, because they weightlift, team meetings, practice, team meetings, dinners. It's like going to class. You didn't go to class, though. Got a 3.94. Never cut class. I saw you in the bar. So the OTAs are really important. But there's no heavy contact. But you are running. You're doing a ton of cardiovascular stuff. And you do have injuries. You have ruptured Achilles and become a plague in OTA workouts because they're doing so much in terms of cardio and running like that. But OTAs are pretty impressive. And then when they finish up the OTAs is one veterans mini camp in early June. Then they take a couple weeks off and then green light go in July. So what do you think about the money issue?
The wide receivers are divas, aren't they?
Oh.
I mean, it's totally changed. I mean, even back in the day, even there were some divas like Jerry Rice, but nowadays every team has got one or two of these guys. When the salary cap goes up, you can't blame them for asking for more money. But like in the case of T. Higgins, if he's been franchised, he doesn't have any options, right? Other than sitting out.
For 1 year.
Yeah, he's not going to do that. Actually, Josh Jacobs did that, didn't he?
Yeah, how'd that work out?
Not so good.
Yeah. Le'Veon Bell was a star in the making in Pittsburgh. He sat out a whole year. How'd that work out? Out of football.
No, it's like, man, take the money. Bird in the hand, man.
So that's where we are there. New York Jets. Let's just talk about this situation. This story just leaked out within this last week. Aaron Rodgers says, I'm not paying any attention to it. Robert Saleh, the owner, the coach of the Jets, in the offseason, tried to hire an assistant head coach who would oversee the entire offense. His right-hand man would run the offense. Now, this comes after last year's lousy season. It comes after the coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, didn't get it done because Rodgers got hurt. It comes after Hackett failed miserably in his 1 year as head coach in Denver. And all of a sudden now, this to me is like a vote of no confidence that the Jets are trying to hire an assistant head coach, quote, over offense with Hackett beneath him. That's not a good sign. Saleh says, no, we're just trying to put together the best staff we could. Aaron Rodgers said this morning at their camp before they broke for the holiday weekend, no big thing to me. Just trust me and trust Hackett. We'll fix this. Well, they didn't fix it last year. It was a mess. And they didn't fix it, obviously, in Hackett's 1 year. So that's a big issue there. Kansas City. Rashee Rice, who caught 73 balls last year, had an unbelievable breakout season as a young star. He's got all these problems off the field. He has been allowed to practice in the Chiefs' OTAs, which is kind of surprising to me. Now, of course, he's facing 8 felony counts for this bad drag racing auto accident that injured a whole series of people in Dallas. Patrick Mahomes stood up yesterday and said, we are going to take Rice under our wings, and we veterans are going to show him the way to become a better person as well as become a better professional. So they're trying to envelop this guy in bubble wrap to make better decisions. Raiders, he was great. Back in the day, he was undrafted, and he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Jim Otto passed away. Legendary center.
00.
00. Cornerstone of the American Football League, aside from the great quarterbacks they had. Age 86, he had 70 surgeries in his life. They finally had to amputate his leg.
Oh, my gosh.
Just a great warrior and a great persona and very successful businessman. And obviously, he had quite an affinity for Al Davis and vice versa, but he's passed away at age 86. He was a warrior. And the final one is Washington Commanders. You remember Daniel Snyder, removed as owner of the team, has moved to London after the disgraceful, toxic workplace environment, Washington Commanders. Anyhow, see, if you were rich and famous, you would have gone to the Cannes Film Festival, too, instead of going drinking in Northern Ireland. Cannes Film Festival this week. Mm-hmm. There is a Danish documentary that's been put out on Donald Trump, and it is derogatory.
I've heard about this,
Oh, my goodness. About all the scandalous stuff he's done, including bank scams, Trump University failing, raping his first wife, went to court. All this stuff is in his, quote, documentary. And it's called The Apprentice for some reason. It's got nothing to do with the TV show. Mm-hmm. Daniel Snyder has filed a lawsuit against the documentary producer. I didn't know that Snyder was a Trump guy, but Snyder's a sleazebag, so yeah, maybe he is. Anyhow, he's filed this lawsuit, and this video is debuting this weekend. You still got time to make an airline reservation.
But what's the basis of a lawsuit? It just he doesn't like it?
Derogatory, yeah.
Oh,
it paints Trump in a bad picture.
Oh, God.
Daniel Snyder. So anyhow, so you got the Jets in Kansas City and Joe Otto, and go ahead and Jim Otto, I should say, and go ahead and talk about Daniel Snyder.
The Jets situation is interesting. I mean, if you want to bring in another coach, I don't see why you can't have an assistant head coach, kind of like a bench coach in baseball, that's not really assigned to a specific thing. But yeah, if you bring a guy in to run the offense, I mean, but Saleh is a defensive guy. Yep. Wasn't he the defensive coordinator for the Niners?
Yep.
So he's not going to have much of an offensive mind. Kansas City, I'm surprised you're not talking about the kicker, and all that controversy about when he made the speech at the commencement address at Benedictine College.
Yeah, talking about Harrison Butker. But again, those are one opinion. The NFL said that was done outside the circle of the NFL. He's entitled to whatever opinion he wants. It might cause some rift, I think. I don't think all Kansas City players are siding with what Butker said about women and about abortion and about COVID and the government. So I don't know where his political interests lie, but this obviously has turned some people off a little bit along the way. But the Butker thing has just kind of gone away because Patrick Mahomes said, we don't agree with his theory, but he's entitled to say it. And then the NFL said he made that comment outside the circle of the NFL.
It's not going away.
I know.
The fans want him out. They want to get the NFL to get rid of him. And they say, we don't need a kicker anyways. Get another kicker. I mean, some people are furious over this.
So that's where we are in the National Football League. Let's talk hoops. We got playoffs going on, John.
Playoffs, yeah, for the NBA playoffs. A lot going on here with these teams. I mean, Lee, is this the year that the Pacers can maybe win it all?
That's a bit of a reach. You'd hurt your shoulder reaching that far. Let's start with topics. Houston Rockets have the 3rd pick in the draft. Now, they've been building, and they got lucky in the lottery. They have the 3rd pick in the draft. They're not going to take that pick. They are shopping that pick. They're looking for veteran players to complement all their young guys, and they have offered the 3rd pick to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Donovan Mitchell, who's about to become a free agent a year from now. And Mitchell has not signed a contract extension. In fact, there have been no negotiations with Dan Gilbert, the Cavaliers owner. This is huge. It's huge because The Lakers are interested in Donovan Mitchell. Now, if you had the choice, if you had yet to go to the bar drinking at UCSD, would you take the 3rd pick for Donovan Mitchell or the Lakers' 17th pick for Donovan Mitchell?
Well, yeah.
Now, the other thing is that Cleveland's come back and said, you want Donovan Mitchell? We'll take 17 and Austin Reeves. The Lakers are also in dialogue, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me, about bringing back a guy they traded away. Talking to New Orleans about Brandon Ingram. So that bears watching whether there's something that's going to develop there. Lakers are shopping their 17th pick, although I don't think that's a very marketable choice. They'd have to throw other stuff in there. But I don't think they want to part with Austin Reeves. And they can't part with D'Angelo Russell because he can opt out of his contract, so you can't trade an opt-out guy. So Houston, with the 3rd pick, wants veterans. Houston, Donovan Mitchell to go with all the young guys. Houston, wow, that's huge. On we go to the playoffs. You got Minnesota. They got that great guard Anthony Edwards, and they got those bigs, Rudy Gobert, as well as the starting center cat, Karl Anthony Towns. And Denver obviously has got Luka Doncic, and Kyrie Williams is having a spectacular individual season. Minnesota has to learn how to win, and they haven't done it. Played with really lousy composure in the first loss at home. Now they got the second game here tonight. You know, if Doncic and those guys go in and get another win, Minnesota's season could be over. And yet Minnesota, when you look at the components of their roster, John, you say, wow, those guys have got an awful lot of talent. So that series bears watching. They've been very critical after the first game that we just lost our composure. We got to play better. Then you talked about Indiana, Boston. You only get one kick at the can to win on the other guy's court. And if you get to the finish line and you almost do it and you don't do it, it breaks your heart, and usually it's fatal. And here's Indiana right down the stretch in game 1, had the Celtics beat. And then Tyrese Halliburton kicked the ball around a couple times in the final minute, and they wound up losing right at the bitter end. Now Halliburton gets hurt in game 2. They got their doors blown off. So that's a big issue. Indiana's going home, but they're down 0-2, and I don't know that they can resuscitate themselves. And then you got Anthony Edwards, and this is really a funny story. So Anthony Edwards drives Minnesota through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. So here they are in the Western Finals, and he's doing an interview with Sir Charles Barkley on TBS. And they're laughing and joking, and Barkley says, yeah, I ain't been to Minnesota in 22 years. I don't like that city. And Anthony Edwards stands up and says, get your all ass up here. I'll take you out to all the fine restaurants. Get your all ass up here. Anyhow, the Minnesota Board of Tourism developed that as an advertising gimmick to sell tourism for the state of Minnesota past week. Yeah. Get you all bleep up here.
Excellent.
It's really funny. So now, Anthony had a good first game. Anthony went 6 for 22 shooting second game.
Not so good.
Now, Minnesota got to take a deep breath here and get back in this playoff series. So that bears watching too. So those are the topics on the NBA. Your comment, Houston Lakers playoffs.
Well, just 2 comments. First of all, while I was out of town for 2 weeks, I was actually out of country. Did the Lakers hire J.J. Redick as a coach?
They are interviewing him. He's one of the 3 veterans. You know, I don't need to do this anymore. I have as much experience coaching as J.J. Redick. I'll apply. I'm a success in the media. He's a success in the media. Hey, interview me.
Yeah.
J.J., that makes no sense at all.
No.
And my biggest concern, I mean, he is tight with LeBron. That's fine. But you hire him as head coach, he's going to boss around Anthony Davis. He's going to look down the bench and do this, do that. I don't know. To me, that's a bad look in the locker room if he's LeBron's guy.
Yeah. And I think if he's LeBron's guy, then that is just going to continue the bad culture energy that I think is the source of the problem for the Lakers. So is J.J. Redick a solution? No, I don't even think Donovan Mitchell is going to really make a difference. And if you gave up a 17 and Austin Reeves, I think the Lakers are losing on that deal.
Yeah, you're just swapping out good pieces. Mitchell and Reeves are good players, but they don't put you over the top. Now, they've also interviewed Sam Cassell, who I think comes with a great track record, longtime player, 15 years in the league, longtime relationship with Doc Rivers. Cassell's currently in Boston as a right-hand man to Joe Mazzulla, the Celtics coach. I think he has great credentials. Now, he's never been a head coach, but he's been an assistant for a long period of time. The third guy they interviewed is Kenny Atkinson, who did a good job in a very unstable situation with the Brooklyn Nets. And then he left. He's on Steve Kerr's right-hand man in Golden State. Those are the two guys with experience, plus the guy on ESPN TV. That's crazy. Who would you get to replace me if I took the Lakers job?
Oh, great question. Not Dan Sileo, I'll tell you that.
Think of that one.
But one other comment is on you mentioned Barkley and TBS, and they're redoing the NBA TV deal. Do you think they're going to keep that crew together? You know, Ernie Johnson and Shaq and Kenny the Jet.
Well, Barkley's been very critical that TNT has screwed up the negotiations, and the NBA is about to reach an agreement with 4 different carriers. Amazon is the latest one to jump in that might replace TNT. Somebody would hire Ernie Johnson and that crew and transport them to the new network. I don't think these guys are leaving TV, but Barkley's just been banging on that. We've done all these great things on ratings. What the hell's wrong with you? How could you screw this? He just bashed him yesterday.
Well, it's like, remember when the NFC and the NFL was on CBS, and then they moved to Fox when Fox started? They brought a lot of those guys over. I mean, Terry Bradshaw was part of that crew even way back then, right?
Yeah, and you know, Fox had its own style and its own brand and all that, but Fox became a player like the other networks did. But this taking this sucker to Amazon, this will be another topic for another night, but you know, this kind of spins off to the NFL. They better be really careful, because if you start taking chunks of your games off where they've always been and you're sending them to a streaming partner, and by the way, John, how much change do you have in your pocket? Because you have to subscribe to all these streaming services to pick up all these games. They've pissed off the 3 big networks. All of a sudden, the networks are saying, you're taking marquee games and putting them on these other places, Amazon, Peacock, whatever. We don't want a steady diet of Carolina Panther football. They're going to upset the 3 big payees with the TV contracts. Keep that in mind, too. So the NBA is at risk going to Amazon, and if you're deleting yourself from TNT, does that help you in the big picture? You get a payday, but are you going to upset fans along the way that say, I'm not going to subscribe to everything. I can't subscribe to everything.
Yeah, the world's changing, Lee.
So that's where we are. Hey, we get to halftime. You got comments about the NBA. You got comments about what we just talked about in the NFL. You got an opinion on the Yankees and the Padres, and are you going to boo Juan Soto this weekend? Jump into Fans Forum, because when we're done telling you all the topics, we want you to be part of our show. And our podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. Does not matter what the project is. In the home, in the kitchen, in the family room, in the man cave, on the back patio, doors, windows, you name it. These are the people you should do business with, Dixieline Lumber. And our podcast brought to you by North County Eye Center of Poway and Escondido. All I can tell you is you will need help with your eyes somewhere down the road. If you've not had an eye test recently, if you've got glasses you want to change, if you need an update on contact lenses, think North County Eye Center. And when we get to really needing help, glaucoma, as well as other issues, think North County Eye Center. Give them a call. Tell them thanks for being part of HACKSAW'S podcast. Set up an appointment so you can get an evaluation. These are the people we do business with, North County Eye Center. And back here as we start the second half of our podcast, John Riley created it. He's to blame for it. You enjoy it. Fans Forum. Tell them how to get involved.
Okay, so yeah, this is your chance. You've got a question or comment for Lee in the world of sports. Look at all these people here. Gary and Tate and Daryl, Pods Nation 619. We've got Jose and Callan McSports and Dave and Douglas. So we're going to get you all involved in Fans Forum. If you've got a question or comment, make sure you type it in the live chat, Facebook, X, or YouTube, and we'll get you involved.
And remind reminder, if you like sports, I write on that website every day of the week. I guarantee you get more information on my website than you get anywhere else, be it talk show, radio, TV, sports anchors, or even your newspaper. It's there every morning. Just check it out. No excuses accepted. LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Also, join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. There's a big orange box right on the homepage of the website. Fill it out. You get all the alerts. And subscribe and share everything we're doing. The minute you subscribe, you get all the alerts about what we're doing with our YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Give us 5 stars. That really helps us. If you look at the two of us, we need all the help you can get. As we go to the second half, John, we've covered baseball, football, basketball. Let's talk puck.
Puck. You know, we're talking hockey here, and we're covering all the major sports today. This is terrific.
Hot headlines. Edmonton Oilers eliminate Vancouver, or Vancouver eliminated themselves in the Western Conference semifinals. And then Edmonton goes into Dallas, and they beat the Stars on home ice in Game 1. It was up and down, back and forth. They checked the daylights out of each other, and Connor McDavid scored in the second overtime. Here's the most amazing statistic. In hockey, scoring in the playoffs is really bloody hard. Edmonton, 15 for 30 on power plays.
Wow.
Nobody clips at 50%. 15 for 30 on power plays in the postseason. Edmonton on penalty kills, 38 penalty kills. They killed off 35 of the power plays.
Wow.
That's absolutely amazing. 9% conversion rate for the other guy with the man advantage. Edmonton is just playing really well. Now, that being said, Oilers got firepower. Dallas has got depth and firepower. This is probably going to be a 7-game series, but the Oil won the first game in Dallas. The most surprising thing is what happened at Madison Square Garden. The New York Rangers, with a ton of firepower and a really good goaltender in Igor Shesterkin, get beat on home ice. Florida Panthers came in and smothered them. Florida plays all 290 feet of the rink defensively. The Rangers totally disappeared. The Rangers had one of the best home records in hockey, went 17 minutes at home without a shot.
No, without a shot.
Without a shot. And by the way, that was Ranger fan, like had tape on his mouth. I mean, there was no energy in the building. Florida just suffocated them. Second game of that series tonight. Toronto Maple Leafs, richest team in the NHL, biggest failure of the NHL, have won one playoff series in 20 years, fired Sheldon Keefe. A bit of a surprise hire. They hired Craig Berube. He had led St. Louis to a NHL Stanley Cup a group of years ago, but got fired. Fired before that in Philadelphia. It was just a really strange hire when they had other proven guys like Todd McClellan available and did not go in that direction, did not go in the direction of Joel Kenville, who's kind of being blackballed out of the NHL right now for his time with the Chicago Blackhawks, I think really unfairly. Jersey Devils. Now, this is a major rebuild. They hired the Maple Leafs coach. Sheldon Keefe had 210 wins, I think it was, and he got hired immediately to take over New Jersey. And in L.A., the Kings just decided to stay with the interim coach, and they gave him a 3-year extension, Jim Hillier. They've got a lot of high payroll guys. They played one of the best defenses in the league. Got to the playoffs, but ran head-on into the roadblock that is Edmonton. Kings have decided to stay with Jim Hillier. What the Kings really need to decide is how they're going to open up cap space, and they need to go get an established NHL goaltender. This rent-a-vet thing they've tried last couple of years has been okay during the season, but it's not made a difference in postseason. So, John, we got red-hot Edmonton. New York is just stunned. I can't wait to see how they're going to counteract everything that Florida does when they smother you. And we got the other news and notes from other teams in the NHL.
Yeah, this is all great stuff. I mean, the fans in Boston and New York have got to just be dying right now. A team in South Florida is knocking off these storied NHL franchises.
And doing it in their rink. I mean, they beat the Bruins a couple times in Boston.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's unbelievable. But the other thing that I think about, I see those logos up there. I see the Devils. I always think of the Seinfeld episode where Putty, remember Putty?
Yep.
And he was like, Devils! You know, that whole episode was fantastic. I mean, of all these teams, I mean, what team in the NHL is the most, besides the Maple Leafs, is the most championship starved?
Les Bleu Blanc Rouge, the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, I don't know how many Stanley Cups they've won, but it's a ton during the Sam Pollock era when I was a kid growing up. And then when I got hooked on hockey, they owned, that was the original 6, they owned the NHL. So they are the marquee. Philadelphia's obviously had some good runs, but the Canadiens, and way back in the day, the Maple Leafs. But the Maple Leafs have not won a cup since 1967. Go figure that one out.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
The Islanders in the mid-70s and the 80s were phenomenal. With Dennis Potvin and Clark Gillies and Brian Trottier. They were a great franchise. Jersey has had some good runs, but Montreal and Toronto, I think, probably have won more cups. Edmonton during the Gretzky era obviously was a phenomenal franchise too. Okay, we go from that. Before we get to Fans Forum, we got Hacksaw's Headlines, late-breaking stories.
Yeah, this is the high-speed sports wire. And, and I'll tell you what, Leo, I remember when you were talking about the high-speed sports wire on the radio, I always had this image of like a ticker tape, like in the back room at 690.
In the newsroom. Oh, yeah, it was. And then it became computerized, and I could sit at the console doing the talk show, doing this, and it really did exist.
Oh, it really did? Okay.
Oh, hell yes. Okay, storylines. Memorial Day weekend, Indy 500. 108th run at the old Brickyard. We saw qualifying last week while you were drinking beer in Ireland. I couldn't believe it was 133 degrees track temperature as they were trying to qualify on Sunday. I mean, it's amazing. And guys are running laps. Think about how hot that is, how slippery that is, and guys are running laps at 2:34. And the qualifying times was 2:32.5. So Indy 500 is Sunday. However, they are talking 90% chance of thunderstorms, cloud cover, which means the track will probably be cooler. But I don't know if they're going to get the race in. I mean, you can't run in rain in IndyCar, and if you get thunderstorms, then you have to dry the track. You might be sitting there all day in rain delays with the cars on pit row. I don't know whether or not they're going to be able to get this thing off on Sunday or whether it's going to get flipped into Monday, Memorial Day. Team Penske, all their guys are on the front line, led by Scotty McLaughlin, who had the best lap of all, best qualifying time, Will Power, former champion, and then the third guy, Joseph Newgarden, former 500 champion. The most intriguing thing is what happens inside on the row 2. Alex Rossi, who's won the 500 out of Italy, phenomenal speed guy. And right next to him is the NASCAR rookie. And this is, to me, is the storyline for what we saw in the month of May. Kyle Larson is doing a double. He is going to run the Indy 500. He qualified to start in the inside second row, 5th slot on the grid. He ran 2:32.5 and qualified his first time ever in an Indy car.
Wow.
It's a hell of a driver. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, 3rd, 4th, 5th row, the Mexican Pato Award, who's run really well at Indy the last couple of years. Rinus VK from the Netherlands. He flies, but he crashes a lot. Those are other names. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. NASCAR, the good old boys.
Yeehaw.
Yeah, hee-haw is right. Lucky there wasn't a monkey wrench in that car. Big fight after the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, small track in North Carolina, last Sunday night. There was a crash early on. Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse were swapping paint and put them both into the wall and knocked them out of the lead. Stenhouse wrecked his car, drove his car into the pits. He parked it in Kyle Busch's stall. Now, Busch's car was damaged too. So Busch comes into the pits. And Stenhouse, as he gets out of the car, Stenhouse starts arguing with him and throws punches at him. And Stenhouse got fined $75,000, most ever by NASCAR towards a driver.
Wow.
So he hit him with punches. Lucky there wasn't a monkey wrench in Stenhouse's car. Might have hit him with that. Formula One, 3rd series right now. They're running the Grand Prix of Monaco this weekend. Lewis Hamilton, legendary. He's got 99 career wins. Has not run a race in 3 years running for Mercedes. He is going to exit Mercedes, and he is jumping to Ferrari next year. Lewis Hamilton in Monaco yesterday said, this team is a no man's land. This team is lost. He's talking about his own team that he won all these races with. He says, we can't figure out downforce. We can't figure out horsepower. How can that be? And, of course, he's going to exit at the end of the season. And, I mean, he's been a great driver, but holy cow, is he unhappy right now. We talked about Formula One and Michael Andretti. This is really an intriguing story. Andretti, of course, was snubbed in his attempt. He filed a $250 million application with F1 to get a team. They turned him down. The teams in Europe say we don't want another American. They'd be cutting up the pie even more, which I think is stupid because Formula One wants to come here and expand. You need an American. Anyhow, Michael Andretti, weeks ago we talked about, is building a factory at Silverstone in London on that track to develop chassis and engines. Cadillac is going to be the engine supplier. He just hired the executive vice president of F1. His name is Peter Simons. Peter Simons knows everything about engines and downforce. He's like their spec director. He's going to go to work for Andretti. He built 4 different championship teams in F1. Wow. So there's no doubt Michael Andretti is really serious about this. He just stole the best guy in Europe to build his cars. And then soccer. They're about to move into the month of June. They're about to begin the friendlies before Copa America begins. Team USA's coach Greg Berhalter just announced his 29-man roster. They are loaded as they get ready for Copa America, which is the scene setter, obviously, for the Olympics and then the next World Cup. Pulisic, Reyna, TJ Adams, Weston McKennie, Fo Balogun, the young guy they developed last year. They are so loaded with goal scorers. Now they got to play together. They're going to obviously have to play Berhalter's system. But I looked at the makeup of the roster, and they got 2 veteran goaltenders from MLS and 1 from Europe. I said, holy cow, this is a really good team. And they've been obviously rebuilding, and Pulisic was item 1, and now they got all these young guys around them. So it'll be fun. They're going to play Colombia and Mexico in friendlies first or second week of June. So we'll get a much better gauge as to how this edition of Berhalter soccer can compete with all these young guys. And I think Reyna's a star in the making. I think Balogun's amazing. And you got Pulisic there, plus the other veterans have already been on a World Cup roster. So I'm kind of fascinated. So, John, that's the update for all the other topics on the table. We're talking auto racing and we're talking corner kicks.
Yeah, a lot of topics on the table. Great hearing about USA Soccer. That's a lot of fun to follow. You know, the Indy 500, they've been having terrible weather through the Midwest. Tornadoes ripping through. Yep. I wonder if imagine if a tornado went through the Indianapolis area. I mean, that could happen.
They do have tornadoes in central Indiana and southern Indiana. Indianapolis is a little bit higher. I don't know that I recall tornadoes blowing through Indianapolis, but the weather that we have, anything is humanly possible. But it's too bad because they said it midweek, 50% chance of thunderstorms. They'd come and go. But now they're saying 90%, and that track gets wet. It takes forever to dry that track, and then if the storms keep rolling through, you're going to have a problem. So this might be a Monday race rather than a Sunday race, but I'll be watching to see if there is a green flag.
Oh, yeah. I love all the pageantry. I'm looking forward to the race, but it's not just the race. I mean, it's a big party in Indianapolis the whole weekend. So
you stood up in front of the TV. I know you did. You and Jim Neighbors used to sing Back Home in Indiana.
Yeehaw.
Oh, it's so cool. I mean, it's like the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
You know, where they say, my old Kentucky home. I mean, what they did with Jim Neighbors, that gave it a signature to the event. And the event is just, I've interviewed all those drivers and the courage it takes. And when I was doing sports talk on 690 and 1090, I would interview the first 2 rows. I chased those guys down, and I did interviews with the pole sitter awesome. And the rookies. And I loved IndyCar racing. I think the fans on the web, I was the only one that did any of that. But so I had a locked-in market. But those are unique people. Rick Mears, and I had a friend in Phoenix, Tom Sneva. He was the first one that went 200. First one. And these guys are doing 235 and 240 on the straightaways now trying to qualify. And people said, Tom, and they called him the gas man. I said, nobody will ever do more than 200. Well, technology changed all that.
Well, the driver you say that's going to do the doubleheader thing, what's the logistics of that? Like the time of the race in Indianapolis, and then that night he's like flying to North Carolina for another race?
From Charlotte. They have helicopters set. He's about the 3rd or 4th guy that's attempted to do it. Now, none of the other guys, Tony Stewart was the marquee name that did it, back on. None of those other guys have done really well in the 500 nor in the 600, but it's novel. But for Kyle Larson to get into an Indy car for the first time in the month of May after limited testing in the offseason and to do what he did to start 5th on the grid out of 33, that's amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah, yeah.
And those guys fly. It's just just amazing. So I enjoyed it. I developed a long friendship with Rick Mears and obviously the gas man Tom Sneva, and Emerson Fittipaldi was just a classy gentleman. And the ornery A.J. Foyt. What the hell you want me to do a talk show for? Okay, let's do it. You got 8 minutes. So I mean, I interviewed all those guys. And one of my good friends was Bobby Rahal, who won the 500 in 1985 and then failed to make the race the next year because he had engine problems. Failed to make the race.
Wow.
And that's so devastating because everything is tied into sponsorship. And if you don't make the race, your sponsorship dollars dry up. And half the teams in the IndyCar circuit, they're not the Andrettis or the Penske's of the world that have got wealth. They're living kind of race to race.
Well, that's like Pato O'Ward. He's from Mexico, and I remember he was like a low-budget entrant.
Yeah, and he's moved around different teams, but he's a good driver.
Right.
But there's so many things going to happen. Engine breaks, tires, bad pit stop, if you crash. So it's a good race. If you've never sampled the Indy 500, do it on Sunday. Just the pageantry is back home in Indiana with Jim Neighbors. It's just so cool. Okay, our podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores in San Diego to serve you. You got projects. Pay a visit. Take a walk through everything Dixieline's got to offer. And by North County Eye Center. People, we're all going to need help with our eyes sometime. When that time comes, even if it's just to set up an appointment to get a vision test, call them and make sure you tell them. Thanks for being part of HACKSAW'S podcast team, North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. It's time for Fans Forum. You think we got a few people stacked up here want to talk to you about drinking Guinness beer and joining the IRA in Ireland? Go ahead, John.
Oh, well, I want to get John involved here. And I do owe John a response. He kept asking me, have you had the Kilkennys when I was in Ireland? And I looked for it in the pubs, but I did have Smithwick's, I think and I think that's like a sister beer. But at any rate, John's got a question. He says, thank God Scott Boras wasn't Tony Gwynn's agent.
Tony Gwynn got involved with a couple of bad agents. It kind of cost him a bunch of money. But Scott Boras, has he done anything wrong? No. He represents his clients. He represents the superstar clients. He gets the payday. That is his entourage, and that's his methodology to do what he does. Now, as Riley just indicated, maybe we're not going to get $43 million contracts. Maybe this thing is topped out. We got owners that are not bidding on free agents because of the luxury tax. Now we got the Yankees owner saying we need to eradicate the luxury tax. It's not sustainable. And again, the Yankees are paying $309 million in payroll this year, and their tax bill is $58 million. That's a hell of a lot of money. So I don't know what kind of money Soto is going to get. But the only thing we'll know, Boras is doing his job. He's doing it legally. There's nothing unethical. You may not be happy he's taking a player off your team. Boras is going to set up a bidding war. That bidding war is probably going to be Soto versus Alonso, Yankees versus Mets. Somebody leaves. I don't think it's going to be Soto. Somebody's going to vacate New York, and maybe they go to Boston, maybe they go to Chicago. They're going to go somewhere else. So it's baseball.
Well, maybe, Boras is going to cook up some mystery team in there, right, to create more leverage in his deal. I'll be
fascinated to see if Boras does what Ohtani's agent did, because nobody ever done it to that magnitude for payments.
They're going to have to do something creative. Because everyone expects Soto to get more than $440 million, and that might not be in the cards. But you were talking about the salary cap and the Yankees, and they want to see it go away. Can you imagine a scenario where they would lift the cap substantially, but then also create the floor?
That's what I want, the floor to spending, so there's more money for mid-major teams that have to give them out to veteran players. Veteran players go to the mid-major team, and then all of a sudden it's a better product in Detroit or Kansas City or Pittsburgh or wherever. I think that has to happen, but the union's not signed off on that.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that story goes. Let's move along here. We'll go to Douglas, and he says, hey, David Fletcher was not betting on the Angels winning the World Series.
Well, you can't bet on baseball.
Well, I think he's cracking on the Angels.
Sure. That's item 1. Item 2 is you can't provide inside trader information to somebody else to bet on baseball. And then item 2A is, was Fletcher providing the money to Colby Schultz to bet on baseball and then reaping benefits because Colby Schultz was betting on baseball? This is a much deeper thing. But as the Life of Riley just announced, if there were 2, there might be more. There might be 4. There might be a hell of a lot more. Now, players know what happens. The Joe Jackson rule, you bet on baseball. The Pete Rose rule, we know what the discipline is. I don't think players are that stupid. But if they're giving inside information to a friend to place bets and getting a little kickback on that, that's a damn violation.
Yeah. Also, that kind of thing happens all the time. I remember one time I was in a bar here in San Diego. It was actually in Del Mar, and one of the jockeys was there, and he was telling me that he wanted me to pay him money to give me inside scoop on how to bet. And I was like, this is setting up like a scam. But you know that sort of thing happens all over the place.
Everybody talks. There's conversation everywhere. It's a dangerous area. You would never want this to explode because it would badly impact the integrity of your sport.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Okay, moving on. Let's go here to Dave talking about the Rams. His Rams week 1 +3 at Detroit. McVay is 6-2 against the spread week 1 for his career, and the dog in week 1 Rams games is 6-2 against the spread. Combined 12-4.
McVay's a great coach, but they got to play at Detroit week 1. They get San Francisco week 3. 3 of their first 4 on the road. That's going to be a challenge. Now, they're excited about the defensive end, Jared Verse. They're excited about the defensive tackle, Fiske, both from Florida State. But you're trying to replace, obviously, Aaron Donald, who is such a difference maker defensively up front. And now they got this issue with Kyron Williams and a foot injury that has not healed. And they need him to be the heavy-duty guy that complements Matthew Stafford. So even though they're excited and he's got a great track record, there are going to be a few questions that they got to get answers to between now and Labor Day weekend when the season kind of kicks in.
I like that they picked up Blake Corum. I think that's cool. As far as the Rams go, I always say bring back the old Eric Dickerson style uniforms. Those are a lot better. The new ones they have now, that's like a gradient where the number fades to white. It's just funky.
It's weird, even though they have the name. They want nothing to do with Rams history. It is absolutely amazing. Not the uniforms. They had a chance to hire former Rams star players to be part of their broadcast crew. Wouldn't even return phone calls. They just wanted to go their own way.
That's just foolish.
Well, they did wind up in the Super Bowl, so then they own the L.A. market, despite what Team Spanos' First Family of Football would like you to think. So that's going to be interesting. We move on. Next question.
Okay, here, let's go to Cal, and he says, hey, what's the most surprising NHL coaching move so far? A little surprised Los Angeles didn't promote Marco Strum from Ontario.
Well, the fact is that Hillier was 21-12-1, and he brought some defensive credibility to the team. Now, he could not solve the mystery of what the hell's going on with Pierre-Luc Dubois. And Kevin Fiala had a decent year scoring points, and those two guys are making mega money. I mean, everybody in L.A. is making $8 million a year, and they've not been as equally productive. They've got to solve the goaltending thing. They have to find a stud goaltender, and I don't know whether that's coming through the farm system or whether that's in free agency, but they're kind of capped out. They don't have a lot of cap space, and nobody is going to take the Dubois contract. I guess I don't understand when Rob Blake made the trade to get Dubois out of Winnipeg, why he gave him a contract extension to that point, because Dubois had gone from Columbus, fell out of favor there, went to Winnipeg, scored some goals, kind of fell out of favor there, and they weren't going to be able to sign him to an extension. And he came to L.A., and they just looked at his split, gave him, I think they gave him an 8-year, $68 million contract, and then he goes out and he was a non-factor for a large chunk of the year. And this is a big physical guy. One of my favorite power forwards in the NHL, this goes back a while, was Eric Lindros. Another was John LeClaire. You know, these are 40 and 50 goal scorers. I think Dubois got the physical capability to be that. He hasn't done it. And I'm sure if the old Canada group in Winnipeg, they'll say, geez, he's not the player we thought he was. And hell, he's not the player that Columbus thought they were getting. Now he's LA's problem. They gave him a mega contract. Most surprising situation, Sturm is interviewing, by the way, this weekend in San Jose. And, of course, he was in Ontario, the Kings American Hockey League affiliate, so he will get some consideration there. I guess the thing that's really surprised me the most is Todd McClellan has not been hired yet. And McClellan's interviewed in Winnipeg. He interviewed in Jersey before they made their choice. Interviewed in Ottawa. Interviewed in, of course, he was in San Jose. So McClellan has not been hired there, and I still think Sheldon Keefe really got a screw job in Toronto. He should be the Maple Leafs coach. There are going to be changes coming, though, because of the press conference. I watched the press conference. Us hockey guys got to watch all this stuff. I watched the Craig Berube press conference with the Maple Leafs. And his item 1, we will not be outworked, and we will make changes on this roster. And the changes, they're going to move Mitch Marner, their 40-goal scorer. He's got 1 year left at $10 million, which is really pricey. I think he might be going to San Jose. He might be going to Chicago. He might be going to Nashville in some type of mega high draft pick deal. But they're going to change the chemistry of Maple Leaf hockey. They've changed the culture.
How much impact does a coach have in game? I mean, are they drawing up plays like an NBA coach does during timeouts?
No, but you practice. You practice the system. You practice the penalty kill. You practice the entry passes. You practice what you're doing in terms of rotating guys through the zone, how you get guys open. John, put the beer down. Just watch the Edmonton Oilers power play. When you see the crisp passing between all those guys and these guys running through the slot is in the middle, right in front of the goaltender, and you see Draisaitl, you see McDonald making passes to those guys stick and the guys flip it into the net. That's what coaching is. That's coaching, not game night. That's coaching preparation for the game itself. I mean, I've never seen a power play like Edmonton. I mean, you go 15 for 30 in the playoffs, the toughest time of the year to score. It's phenomenal. So that's the impact of coaches. It's a little bit motivation. Rick Tocchet, I've been told, is in Vancouver, just was named Coach of the Year and dragged the Canucks to the playoffs before they finally ran out of steam. Tocchet, I was told, is just a great motivator in the room. He just walks in and says one sentence, looks at every guy, and walks out. And they went, they won the division. So you got X and O's guys, and you got the ABCs of motivation, too. It's just kind of fascinating to see.
Cool stuff. And the innovators, I'm sure, as well.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go on here to Jose talking about the NFL. He says, "Hi, Lee. I feel like the NFL, with the NFL extending the regular season, the backup quarterbacks are going to be like a baseball rotation with starting quarterbacks to save wear and tear, like hockey backup goalies, too."
You're going to need backups because if you're going to play 18, quarterbacks are going to get further dinged. The union has not agreed to this. Now, like anything else in the NFL, I'm giving you an 18th game, John Riley. You're giving me something in the collective bargaining agreement. You're giving me more roster spaces, or you're giving me higher pay. So there's going to have to be a trade-off for the NFL to get to an 18-game schedule. I worry about the wear and tear factor. I mean, it's just brutal. 18 games in 20 weeks. They're going to have 2 bye weeks. 18 games, the wear and tear factor is just phenomenal. Now, that can be offset by more guys on the active roster, bigger roster bases, etc. But, I mean, the wear and tear on Matthew Stafford, because they're going to take hits. The wear and tear on any quarterback, they're going to get hurt and going to need players. But there's a big drop-off between my star quarterback and your backup quarterback. And if you're going to play your backup quarterback, good luck to you.
Well, Easton Stick was like throwing up picks in the OTA, right?
Yeah, I think he threw 4 and 2 others were dropped. But that's a new offense, and he's learning. And, this is in May, pal. It's not the first weekend of the regular season. But when he played, even though he moved the team at the end after the Justin Herbert injury, Easton Stick couldn't get the ball in the end zone, period. So you can go up and down the field, but if you can't convert in the red zone and you have to kick a lot of field goals, you need – and that's what goes on with backup quarterbacks.
Do you think the Falcons have the best backup quarterback?
Well, Penix hasn't played yet. We got to see. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt that Kirk Cousins is an established statistical star. Now, he's never won bleep in his career in terms of going deep into postseason. But Atlanta, this whole thing, I was on actually on a show in Winnipeg today, and we were talking about that situation. Atlanta needed pass rush help, and they bypassed the top 2 pass rushers to take a quarterback who's going to be your backup for 2 or 3 years, unless something catastrophic happens to Cousins. Maybe they took him because in an insurance policy, if Cousins has more problems with the Achilles, then you got the quarterback. But they got running backs. They got wide receivers. Got a great tight end in Atlanta, Kyle Pitts. You didn't need Penix. You needed pass rushers, and they bypassed 2 of them. So that's kind of a strange storyline. Penix will be developing. We don't know if he's going to play well. I will throw this at you because I found out about this morning. Chicago has completed its first week of OTAs. Caleb Williams had a miserable time. And, of course, he's going against the Bears' #1 defense. I mean, I want to say 6 for 17, 1 versus 1. I mean, he was throwing picks, bounce passes, incompletions, running out of the pocket. It's a learning curve. And he's a great college quarterback, but that's at USC. Penix is at Washington. That's not in the NFL going against Pro Bowl cornerbacks, linebackers, blitz packages, and all that.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I expected him to come out of the gate great. But, the other teams that have interesting backup quarterbacks, Pittsburgh Steelers, Denver Broncos, they could do something like what Jose's talking about and maybe have a little bit of a rotation.
Russell Wilson is the guy in Pittsburgh. He's taken all the snaps at #1. They got him dirt cheap. Denver swallowed the contract. They took Justin Fields, who they got from the Bears. He's on a final year of contract. Like Russell Wilson, they're using Justin Fields as a kick returner and a punt returner with the idea we might make him a wide receiver. That's
Really?
it. That was the Bears quarterback, a number 1 pick. Chicago got rid of him. They took a 6 to get him off the roster. So he's got 1 year to go. That's fascinating. It's interesting what's developed in Denver this week in the full OTAs. Peyton Manning was in there to do interviews, and Peyton Manning, he knows Sean Payton very well. He says, that kid quarterback, Bo Nix, that's the right situation to be with because that coach will develop that quarterback. So that bears watching. Now, the theory coming out of the Oregon Ducks program was that Bo Nix was just a great systems guy. But Bo Nix was not the complete quarterback. He's not going to strong arm it down the field, etc. So will Peyton devise an offense like he did with Drew Brees that made Brees a legitimate superstar? Will he do that for Bo Nix? I mean, Nix got smart, got a lot of experience, but he's not a guy who's going to throw the ball deep into the end zone and power it past cornerbacks and safety. So that's going to be fascinating. But Peyton Manning said, I think Sean Payton's going to do a great job with Bo Nix. He said, great fit.
I think it's going to be fun to watch. I agree.
Okay, next question.
Next question. Okay, this is from Pods Nation. Pick a topic. Pick up that phone. They love you out here, Lee.
Hey, somebody ought to love me. Great weekend ahead. You know, there's, and I don't know, it's because I'm from New York originally, and I was not a Yankee fan, but there's energy when Yankee baseball and its tradition comes into your yard. There's just a buzz in the stadium, and I swear there will be a pile of people wearing Yankee pinstripes tonight. And that happens in San Diego a lot. Got a lot of Red Sox fans, got a lot of Cubs fans. Obviously, Dodger Blue becomes equal to the amount of Padre Brown and Gold. But there's just a buzz when the Yankees are in town. And obviously, this is not the Yankees of Reggie Jackson. It's not Catfish Hunter, and it's not Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. But there's just something about the tradition of Yankee baseball, which is kind of cool. I would have worn my Yankee hoodie, but I didn't want somebody to hammer me.
Remember when Jake Peavy made his debut? That was against the Yankees. I remember it was a sold-out Qualcomm Stadium, 60,000 people.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And this is what makes interleague play great. You know, you're not getting the Yankees every year, but you get them okay.
We are now.
Well, not
with
at
the
home.
New schedule.
Not at home.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's going to be every other year. So I think this is good for the sport. It's good for baseball, great for Padre fans, and it's going to be a party in the gas lamp all weekend.
Yeah, Gallagher Square. There'll be a lot of people, maybe even somewhere in pinstripes, watching that game too. And the cool thing is, I thought about this morning before I came here, John, is, the old rule was we're going to play the Colorado Rockies and the Giants and Arizona 17 times and the Dodgers 17 times. Well, now it's 13 because baseball finally got smart and said, hey, let's bring the Orioles in for 3 and the Yankees and the Red Sox, and we'll platoon them. The Yankees come here this year. You go to Yankee Stadium next year. Same thing, you flip-flop with Boston. You get to see all the other teams. And I think that's cool because, with apologies to you, I don't want to see the bleeping Giants 17 times.
Yeah, exactly. And as a Padre fan, we definitely don't want to see the Rockies that often. Well, speaking of the Yankees-Padres series, Gary says, hey, you think Juan Soto will get cheered or jeered tonight?
Well, that's interesting because, he's joined at the hip by Scott Boras, so you're going to be booing Boras for what baseball has become. I have mixed emotions. I mean, he was crap his first year here in 2022.
Oh, yeah.
And he came here, then he came back and he was crap to begin 2023. Now, from June 1st on, superstar, used as a launching point, and obviously, became a marquee guy, but forced the trade. And he was a little too political for me. I felt uncomfortable in the clubhouse because I never felt I was really getting an honest baseball answer. And I was told it was all about him and his statistics, and he treated people really differently than other players. So I guess I'd boo his ass. Machado's getting booed at Dodger Stadium for being stupid when he was young. So I assume he'll get booed, even though he was the focal point that obviously brought us Michael King and then brought us other players, one of whom was used to also bring Dylan Cease here. So indirectly, Soto's arrival and then dismissal has brought us 2 frontline starting pitchers. Now, you going to boo him?
I don't, if I were at the game, I would just, hey, I want Soto. I wouldn't boo him. But I know that 3/4 of the stadium is going to boo him.
Boo him and boo Boras.
They're going to boo Soto. I mean, Boris isn't going to stand in the batter's box. But I just would love to see the Padres, take 2 out of 3 or maybe sweep the Yankees. That's the way a Padre fan should be able to zing with Soto, is by the team winning. And you got your top 3 pitchers going, they got a shot.
Top 2.5 pitchers, because we don't know what Musgrove really is right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
Statement game, litmus test.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's both.
All right, let's go from Fans Forum. We got some social media people here do we call them social media cheap shots? Is that what it is?
Yeah, some of it is. Yeah, okay, here, let's go. Let's talk a little Clippers here. And this is from Rutherford, and he says, they have Leonard under contract. You fortunately You need stars with a new arena, but Harden and Westbrook are dead weight as of now. Paul George is no longer a top 10 player. Leonard, damn, this situation looks tougher than it should be.
It could really be tough on Steve Ballmer, but at this point, he's got a good relationship with Paul George. He's item 1. That's the first decision has to come from that domino. Does George opt out? Does he opt out to go be a free agent? The big story is opt out, go to Philadelphia. Or does he opt out just to get a 3-year extension on a bigger money from Steve Ballmer? That's item 1. Item 2 is Harden. Harden is an unrestricted free agent. He bailed on him again in the playoffs. That's a history of what his career has been. He's 36. Are you going to give him 3 years max? I was told the Clippers do not want to give him 3 years max. I don't know what's going to happen with Westbrook. He was a good soldier, and then he just fell apart at the end. He spent more time at the end of the season and in the playoffs arguing with people and being pissed off. I didn't even know if they're going to bring him back. They've got to find a way, and they're going to have cap issues. They're going to find a way to get more players in there. If George stays with Kawhi, that's 2 pieces of the puzzle, though Kawhi's got the injury issue that seems to be growing. They could be a pretty competitive team, or they could really go down the drain if George opts out and Kawhi's no longer Kawhi.
Yeah, and then Harden might not sign. I mean, all 3 of them could be gone, especially with the injuries. But isn't it funny how some of these teams in the NBA, they're in the middle. They're not championship caliber, but they're not stinking up the joint and getting the number 1 picks. So you could be stuck within that mediocrity. You kind of have to blow it up every once in a while, right?
You could be stuck with the Lakers. Is that what you're referencing?
Well, that too, yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. Now with Houston, with the story that broke this week, the Houston's going to shop the 3rd pick, and they want Donovan Mitchell. That makes Houston a big-time player. Obviously, Cleveland goes into rebuild mode to a degree. So be fascinating to see. Next question.
Okay. This was a comment about Slapshot. And this is from, Cascani. And he says, great story indeed. Makes this wonderful movie even more enjoyable. So glad I found this video. Thanks.
Yeah, it's cool. We got so much response, and we need to do some more movie review stuff. Maybe John will be dragging me over here and bribing me with Guinness beer, and we'll do some special podcasts just on. We could sit and talk about the best baseball movies of time, best football movies, basketball, and so we'll do. Maybe that'll have to come under the bonus podcast rule that we have. John's going to get me some Guinness beer along the way that he brought back from Ireland. But it's a great story. It's cool, and if you've never ever seen the movie Slapshot, I guess you can get it on Netflix. You can get it anywhere.
Right.
You got to watch it because 85 to 90% of the story is true. Because I was there in minor league hockey in those years in the North American Hockey League it wasn't the Charlestown Chiefs, it was the Johnstown Jets. But how would they go find the movie review we did on Slapshot?
Well, he saw the video on YouTube, so I'm sure he was looking for Slapshot or, it just came up as a recommended video. So
they just type in YouTube Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and then find it listed under Slapshot?
Well, if you're looking in YouTube, you're probably looking at Slapshot, and there's a bunch of Slapshot content, and the Hacksaw video must have popped up for him.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, if you've never seen it, if you like hockey, you got to see it. And even if you don't like hockey, see it because Paul Newman was just phenomenal. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our extended Friday special podcast. We're back here Monday starting at 1, even though it is Memorial Day weekend. We'll be here talking sports with you, and then, of course, back on our regular Thursday schedule. Podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Center Stores, 9 locations to serve you. You got projects, go see them. They can be your best friends. And by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido, we all need help with our eyes. Why don't you give them a call? Just set up a vision test as an entree and tell them you appreciate North County Eye Center, being part of Hacksaw's podcast. John, still waiting for you to go on the floor with jet lag. I can't believe you came back from Spain. Guy's trip was unbelievable. 7 hours, 5-hour layover in Montreal, 6 more hours to San Diego, and dude is still talking to me with linking noun and verbs. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to hit a wall at some point. I just want to make it through the Padre game. I want to see the magic of Luis Arraez, do some special, another 4-hit game maybe in the cards. It's going to be a great series.
We'll see you come Monday. Have yourself a great Memorial Day weekend. Thank you for joining us. Always great to have you with us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.